For over 75 years, those people have lived under oppression under the Israelis, who delight in the subjugation and the oppression of a whole people, where wholesale slaughter is a matter of course, and nobody does anything to rein in the wicked behavior of the Israelis against these mostly innocent men, women, and children who are unable to properly defend themselves and are unable to fight back against a regime that is backed by that one that boasts that it's the only superpower on the planet, namely the United States of America. And don't forget Britain, because Britain is the one who started the whole process in the first place. And so Israel is now manifesting. If you listen to some of the Israeli spokespersons, when they speak on television, they will often sound, when they're asked about what they're doing to the Palestinians, apart from the lies about Palestinians using their own people as human shields and all of that stuff that they like to say, apart from that, sometimes if you listen, the Israeli spokespersons, they sound incredulous that they're being asked such questions, and often they will reply, well, what about what you did against ISIS? What about what you did in Iraq? What about what you did in Libya? And they will hit back at their Caucasian questioners as if to say, you are hypocrites because we're only doing what you did. We're only following your example. And the reporters, they know it's true. They know that Israel is an outpost of America and Britain. They know that Israel was planted in the Middle East to keep the Middle East under Western domination and Western control. That is the purpose of Israel in that region. Israel is not a Jewish state. It is not a Jewish state. According to Mr. Balfour, when he wrote to Mr. Rothschild, he didn't say they were going to set up a Jewish state. He was writing to set up a Zionist entity. And Zionism and Judaism are two completely different things. And in many aspects of history, they were at odds. And there are many Jews today who reject this idea of Israel or Greater Israel, who reject the idea of what has been done and what is being done to the Palestinians. But the mainstream media is not going to tell you that there are many in the Jewish faith who reject this idea that this is a Jewish homeland, when in reality it is like a military aircraft carrier. In that place, it is a place that is militarized for continuous warfare. It is a place that is armed to the teeth by the Western powers, and that's why, even though they speak mealy-mouthed words and they make false declarations of condemnation or feeling sympathy for the Palestinians, at the same time, when they say, eventually they got to the point where they say, oh, there needs to be a ceasefire. We're working very hard to bring about a ceasefire. But in the meantime, here is 23 more billion worth of weapons. So you can continue to slaughter men, women, and children. I want you to imagine, I've lived in this country for well over 50 years. And I've seen from time to time in this country, they accidentally, during a building project, they unearth a World War II bomb, unexploded. And when they find that unexploded ordnance, there is a huge panic and an emergency and an evacuation in order to protect that neighborhood, just in case that bomb should go off and injure a person or many persons, because they are demonstrating a care for their population and the fact that they don't want there to be any injuries whatsoever. They take no chances. That place will be cordoned off. The bomb disposal people will come in. Even if they have to put people up for days in a hotel, they will do whatever it takes to protect one life from being harmed. I want you to imagine for a second, especially those of you who have got children at home. I want you to imagine in excess of 16,000 children, many of them babies, being torn to pieces by 2,000-pound bombs supplied by the British and the Americans. And you think that at some point, when this is all done and over, that Israel can get back to business as usual and it's going to be normal runnings? I mean, honestly, you live in a universe. When I listen to the news and I hear over and over again Israelis and other talking heads from Britain and other parts of the world, and they're saying, well, whatever happens at the end of this process, Hamas cannot be in any kind of power. Hamas must go because they're so barbaric, they're so medieval, they're so wicked, they're so evil. There's no way that they must ever be in any authority over Palestinians in that region. And I think to myself, okay, so what are you saying about Netanyahu? What are you saying about a so-called government that has now murdered in excess of 40,000 innocent men, women, and children? According to the popular medical magazine in this country, Lancet, they estimate that the death toll could be as high as 186,000, not to count those who are buried under rubble. I mean, it's really something. And as I listen to these talking heads, what comes to mind is that I'm not hearing anything new. It's just the standard stuff that Europeans do all around the world. Do you know what it's called? Regime change. When it was Yasser Arafat, you didn't like him. Arafat had to go. And eventually the Israelis penned him in his compound and poisoned him and caused him to die. Eventually, when they knew he was going to die, they let him go to a hospital in Europe and die. It doesn't matter who it is in power, they can't find anybody on the other side that they can deal with. It's got nothing to do with anyone on the other side, but it's got everything to do with the mentality of white supremacy, European supremacy. Now it's Hamas. They're the new bogeymen. And every time they find one. Once upon a time, they gave Saddam Hussein $80 billion. You didn't hear what I said? They gave Saddam Hussein $80 billion to attack Iran. Saddam was their friend then. They gave Saddam military intelligence from their satellites so they could look at the Iranians in their attempt to defeat the Iranian revolution, Islamic revolution. And then at a certain point in time, they fell out with Saddam. And Saddam became the new bogeyman. And then it was regime change for Iraq. And if you remember, at that time, what did they say? Our argument is not with the Iraqi people. Our argument is with Saddam. But who did they kill? Over 1 million Iraqis. See, these are liars. These are deceivers. These are wicked demons. Then the next bogeyman was Muammar Gaddafi of Libya. I want you to imagine some foreign nation sending missiles into the UK and killing the Prime Minister's son or daughter. How do you think this country would react? But they could do that to Libya, to Gaddafi. They murdered Saddam's 2 sons, murdered his family, murdered him in the sham trial that they held. Then they went to Assad in Syria. They haven't managed to get Assad yet, but they're still trying. They occupy parts of Syria, stealing the oil right now as we speak. You all watch your news, right? And on the news, they're telling you about this bogeyman and that bogeyman. And you know, Vladimir Putin is the reincarnation of Adolf Hitler. And Kim Jong-un, he's such a wicked, crazy person. My God, they mustn't have nuclear weapons because who knows what they'll do. But guess what? Who's the only one who's ever used a nuclear weapon? Wasn't anybody who looked like me. Wasn't any brown man. Wasn't any yellow man. My recollection was that it was America who dropped an atomic weapon on Hiroshima, killing 150,000 people instantly, and hundreds of thousands over the years, millions over the years, through the fallout of nuclear contamination. And when that bomb dropped, not long after the Second World War, when that bomb dropped, America said, it's wonderful, it works. Let's do it again. And so they dropped another one on Nagasaki. These are crazy, sick people. The Japanese were in no way threatening the West, but the dropping of those two weapons was to send a message to the rest of humanity that we are the boss, we're in charge, and if you step out of line, we can annihilate you. Because this is the mentality of might makes right. This is the mentality of white supremacy. In the Middle East, in Palestine, before Balfour and his declaration, before 1948 and the imposition of Israel in that region, there were Jews living in that land, indigenous Jews, alongside indigenous Arabs and Muslims, alongside indigenous Christians. And guess what? They got on very well. It was a beautiful place where all of these people lived together. And the Jews, by the way, were a very small minority among the Christians and the Muslims at that time. But once the European so-called Jews decided to flood into that area, all hell broke loose, because they didn't come into that area to establish community and neighborly living with the indigenous people there. They didn't come in there to share the land and to be a part of a greater community. They came to dominate. They came to take over. They came to destroy what was there and to replace it with their own. This is the reality of what is happening today. And so, the history of European interference in all parts of the world is really sick and really diabolical. In 1953, the CIA, along with the British and others, they engineered a coup in Iran to overthrow the then democratically elected president of that nation, Mohammad Mossadegh, and to install a puppet monarch who they called the Shah of Iran, in order to get more or less free oil from that region through the auspices of a British company.